What's good, Mzansi? Welcome to our next episode with Dr. Eon Hart. Dr. Eon Hart represents a company called Oneness Culture. Now, he himself has been around for a very long time. He's got a number of accolades behind him, not limited to entrepreneurship. He's got a number of PhDs. He also is a musician. He's written a book. He's an author. He's a public speaker, and the list goes on and on and on. So we're very excited to be talking to him today because there's a number of things that he's busy with, which directly align to what we're doing as the Amstang MPC. Dr. Hart, how are you doing?
No, we're doing good, Jared, and very grateful to be part of this community. Community is what we love to be a part of, no matter what we do, whether it's in the corporate world or in communities itself. It's fantastic to just be part of a community that's doing something that is cut edge. It's cut edge. A community that is wanting to do something about change in our country. To be around people that are just hanging around and wanting things to change but not be a part of it, is one of the greatest irritations that I have. Someone once said, you should rather get the solution rather than talk about the problem. There's a lot of people that talk about problems that don't get solutions. So I like to be around communities and people and groups that are doing something to bring about transformation. So I'm excited to be part of this. This is exciting.
Fantastic. Dr. Hart, tell us, where are you focusing your energy at the moment? I mean, where's your greatest concentration currently?
My greatest concentration right now is to create strategic collaborations and partnerships, between the corporate and the NGOs, entrepreneurs. I believe in strategic partnerships. We really call it engagement after the event. People get together, they have a great event, they give out cards. And what happens after the event, there's nothing that's happening after that. There's no collaborations, there's no change, there's no follow-up. And we teach, both myself and Vuyokazi, we teach people and groups the importance of collaboration after the event, engagement after the event, rather than just accessing people, but not continuing that engagement.
How important is it, in your opinion, for us to be collaborating at this stage? I mean, I know it's something that you focus quite heavily on, and on our side, we also all about trying to bring all these different silos or split off factions together so that we have one big engine that sort of drives positive change in South Africa. How vital do you think that is to the success of our country?
It is very important. I like to read this to you. There's something I noted, and I told you the other day that I'm very, when it comes to notes, I'm very, very, very set on that. Because somebody once said, if you believe in something enough, then you will document it. And that's why I author books, because I don't want to say something today and people not remember tomorrow. So I'd like to read what you actually asked me, and the answer to that is very simply, I wanted to say this and quote it from my book. What we are doing here is bigger than our dreams and our goals as individuals, families, communities, and cities. This is the rise of a nation with a collective consciousness to be one, to go from doing good by ourselves to being good and together. What we have here is community. Your neighborhood is where you live, but community is where you find a sense of belonging. In community, we have a common unity, a common union, a common purpose, a common goal, a common vision, a common cause. In community, we expect a common result, and we tirelessly and passionately work together to achieve it. We have survived as a nation until now, but the hour has come for us to thrive as a South African community. There's one thing to survive. The other thing is to thrive. And as communities, we have separately and individually, we have achieved things together. But when we bring all of those dots together and we make it one big, mega community, then we are able to thrive as a community. So I believe a community and togetherness, oneness, no matter what you call it, it has to happen from here on. We mustn't wait for crisis to band together, although it's been fantastic. The crisis has actually brought out a sense of community that we once had when we were young. Before we started, in our lives as separate people, we started to become prejudiced, more prejudiced. We started to point the fingers. Now crisis comes, and it took this crisis to bring us together, to go back to where we started.
Yeah.
So I believe community is what's going to shape this, not just this nation, but the entire globe. People have learned to do things together, even remotely doing it together. You know, we generally, as people, we are selfish. You know, it's the human nature, you know, to think about ourselves first. And there's been training out there about me, myself, and I. You know, self achievement. You know, self discovery. But now it's time to community discover. To discover community. To discover the bigger picture. This is bigger than us put together. So we need to venture past me, myself, and I, and start to look at what made us great in this time, and not stop here. The crisis is going to come to an end. There's been many crises, you know, and we've come past it. But the important thing is that we venture forward as a community.
I love your sentiment there. How do you think that we would get that we start working towards social integration? And when I talk about that, I mean, we've got, at the moment, we've got different communities. You've got the white community, black community, colored community, Indian community. And there's nothing wrong with us having our own identities and our own sense of community. There's nothing wrong with that, because that's also part of nature and the way that we work. But it's important, I think, that we bring these communities and at least teach these communities how to engage together for something that's constructive for the bigger picture. What do you think on that?
Yes. What's happened I believe, in different communities, we have to have what I call them champions in our community. You are a champion in your community right now for what you are doing. And you don't necessarily claim, you know, a championship amongst the white people. You have a community. And like I said the other day, we live in neighborhoods, but we find our sense of belonging in a community. Now, you could have a community out in Witterbome, you know, where there is whites, coloreds, blacks, all kinds of race groups, for lack of a better word right now, you know. But you form a community amongst the people that think like you, that are like-minded, you know. So in your community, there's one community, you know, where you see your white people as a community, but that's not a community, that's a neighborhood. That's just a neighborhood. And is there any place right now that don't have integration? I don't believe it. There's very few places, you know, that don't have whites, coloreds, blacks, Indians in the same area. So to call that, you know, a white community is taboo now. It's not going to happen. But I'm saying, in terms of your white community, any rate, there is still the idea of white, black, colored, and Indian. Is that we must find champions like you that spearhead the idea of community. You see, it starts with one little spark, and then it becomes a flame. And so if we don't start with the individual, we're never going to be able to raise up a community that thinks the same way. So I believe that in every community, the white community, the Indian community, the Zulu community, the Xhosa community, we must find voices that have already existed over time. But they've just said it in isolation and separation from the other voices. So get the champions together that's been saying the same thing in their communities, and join them together and say it from the same platform. This is one of the platforms.
You know, I had a very interesting conversation with Kuster Jack yesterday, and he was just drawing my attention to the fact that if you look at where we are today, and when we reference history, you would assume that everybody was part of the struggle. Everybody shared the same belief about the liberation against the apartheid regime, and him growing up in that time. I mean, he was born in the early 50s, or the mid 50s anyway. Him growing up in that time, he said that it wasn't the case. It wasn't the case where everybody believed. And many people actually thought this thing is too powerful. The government is too powerful. This regime is too powerful. We cannot do anything about it. We cannot win. But there were a few, one or two champions that believed in change, that believed that they deserved better, that they could bring about this change. And it was only after a certain momentous moments in history that happened, where people started to actually believe and started to move forward and started to think to themselves, hold on a second, there is a way we can do this. So I think in our view, you know, this is a conversation again that I had this morning. You know, we think of ourselves in isolation. I'm just one person. I'm just one being. I don't have the ability to do anything. That is just not the case. The case is that we have to. If you have a voice, stand up and be heard. If you have a belief, stand up and be heard. People will come up behind you. People will rally behind you if your cause and if your belief resonates with them.
Yes. For instance, take you. I mean, like I said the other day, I want to clap for you because of what you've done. I mean, and I'm going to say it over and over, and I think most of the speakers have done that. They've commended you for taking the step outside of a comfort zone. You know, and I spoke the other day about a box, you know, being in a box. You know, I've written a program called Life and Business Without a Box. You know, until now we've thought outside of the box, you know, and our bodies are still in it. Our businesses are still in the box, but we're thinking outside. We want to achieve something great that we see out there, but we're actually not getting ourselves out of the box. The only way to start living that life is to get the box away from you, throw it away, burn it up, whatever you want to do, a bonfire, you know, burn all the boxes in our nation, you know, and get out of our boxes so that we can live a life outside of what we have been imprisoned by. We've been imprisoned by that box. We want a new life. We want a new South Africa. We want Ubuntu to grow to a bigger level and a higher level, but we are not actually getting out of our boxes, out of our caves to join together. Now, I believe this is the time when the voices of those individuals that spoke 10, 15 years, 20 years ago, even 5 months ago, 2 months ago, just before lockdown happened, before we heard about Corona being a global pandemic, all those thoughts we had, all those deliberations, the collaboration that we wanted to start, suddenly now there is an urgency for us to do it. But before crisis struck, we were very lackadaisical. We were in a comfort zone, you know, until crisis came and we saw here is an opportunity for us to do what we've always wanted to do. We've wanted to connect with others in our field, others in, you know, in our sphere of influence. Now is the time to do that. In communities now, you see such a togetherness, such a unity, such a oneness. Where else, you know, if this didn't happen, if crisis didn't strike, we would never have been moved to do this. So now it's time to get our boxes. It's time to throw the boxes away, burn the boxes, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things that you and I have spoken about is about creating more inclusive economies and bringing economies closer together. And just for our guests that are listening, if you're not familiar with what I mean by that term, is that you don't just have one single economy operating in South Africa. You've got multiple economies. You've got township economies, and you've got the main economy. You've got all these little factions that are happening. You know, each economy sort of looks after itself or operates in these silos. And I mean, there's a lot of money and there's a lot of revenue being made. But are we getting enough exposure? Are we doing enough to integrate those economies in order to try and drive South Africa forward and get our economic wheels turning? Especially, you know, now given the fact that we've got all of these challenges for us to consider.
Yeah, Jared, I believe with Oneness Culture, what we are doing currently and what we were going to do just before, you know, the lockdown happened, you know, that we were going to launch on the 4th. And it was sad for us because there was a lot of corporates involved. The funding was organized. We had the venues organized. The people were, you know, mobilized, you know, to do this. We had a lot of teams, you know, ready to help us. The problem is it didn't happen, and here we are. You know, what do? You know, if there's no more a platform for speaking face to face with people, and as coaches, trainers, specialists, counselors, we need crowds. We need people. We need to be in their face, you know, to be able to do what we do. You know, and now to take that from a physical you know, position to an online position is a very great challenge for many people. You know, your entrepreneurs, who do you know? You know, young entrepreneurs, SMMEs, you know, small business that started out that suddenly had all the technology. They don't have the technology, you know. And so what we literally have to do now is to unlearn entrepreneurs, unlearn the business community so that they can become used to what the rest of the world has always used. You know? On has been the way that people business, you know. And now we face to face with the reality that if you didn't do that, you got to get with it. You got to get onto programs where they teach you this. Again, that is a platform where this will be possible, you know. And so we are doing exactly the same things as I'm doing it, just in a, you know. But eventually, what will happen is on platforms like this, we will, where we have lots of entrepreneurs within your community. It is to connect those entrepreneurs together. You know, if you are into, for instance, if you're into graphic designing, if you're into web designing, why not get all those web designers together and get to a place where they can collaborate on a platform like this? You know, like your platform with for the entrepreneurs. It's an ideal opportunity for all of those entrepreneurs to get together. It's not easy for a doctor to speak to a lawyer, but it's easy for a doctor to talk to a doctor.
Absolutely.
So this could literally become one of the platforms where you connect those minds and those collective minds and come up with new ideas to do it together as doctors, attorneys, web designers. That's how we're going to start creating a new kind of world with the businesses that we are in.
Absolutely. One of the core focuses of ours, well, as soon as we have the ability to be able to go outside and reconnect again at a physical level, is to look at putting together some scale of conference where we can speak to leaders in industry, we can speak to entrepreneurs, we can put them all into one space. We can start to share ideas, and we can start to talk about different experiences, because I think that is the key as well. You know, communication is key when it comes to, let's talk about the things that we did that didn't work. You know, let's talk about the things that failed for us, because all our learnings come through failure. You know, our learnings don't come through the good times. Our learnings always come through the challenges that we have, and it's very important that we start to talk about these challenges. We start to also understand challenges that people face, because you know it's very easy for us to talk from our matter of perspective, how we see things and the experiences we go through. It might not be the same as the person that is that has a shoe store at the airport that does shoes all the time. You know, whatever what their challenges might be and obstacles might be are not the same as a person that might have an IT company, for example. Both businesses are incredibly relevant. Both serve an incredibly good purpose. But you know, we need to be able to bring these communities together and to understand each other's challenges and figure out ways of driving business and growth.
Yeah. The thing is, like I said before, is you know, for you to have access to somebody's life, you have to engage them. And unfortunately, the engagement has been that much, you know, but we want to access people. And so at levels of engagement like that, conferences, seminars, symposiums, workshops, when we begin to talk to each other, then that gives us an opportunity to access each other's world. You know, one thing I believe in is not the power of association, but the where people associate with themselves with powerful people, but they need to turn that around to engage the person. Because if I want money, I don't go to the money, go to the bank manager. I have to engage the bank manager. So if you want what Jared has, you have to engage Jared, not what he can give you. So selfies, you know, that selfie thing, let's take a photo. And if people see me on Facebook, because of that association, I'm going to have an open door. No, it doesn't happen that way. You can ask the greatest of businessmen. Until they've had engagement and an ongoing, continual engagement with the person, they never access the power that they have. So what we need to maintain during this time, from an online perspective, and I know it's not going to be like this all the time. It's not going to. There's going to be a change. Crisis is going to come to an end. Corona is going to come to an end. The lockdown is going to come to an end. And it would be a shame that we had this platform to connect to each other, and then we get past it, and then we go back to our little cocoons. We have to take this now then to a physical level, to a conference level, where we don't do it once a year. Don't do it once a year. Do it as many times as you can. You know, to get to hear, you know, the pulses that we had, you know, on this particular platform, and other platforms as well. There's other platforms running, but I don't know any platform currently running that is as big as this one. You know, so it's been a powerful platform. So let's take this community and make it a physical manifestation where we demonstrate what we said online. Because now it's going to come to the crux where we are eventually able to get outside of our homes and outside of our businesses, outside of the lockdown. Then we're going to have to, you know, put our money where our mouth is. You know, so I want to encourage this community. Don't get excited only about this platform while there's lockdown. Stay excited, stay pumped up, stay amped up for what comes after this. That's what I wanted to talk to you about as well. Is there's a next after this? You know, after every crisis, there's a next. My concern is not just being prepared, you know, while we have this lockdown, while we are fighting Corona, but what is next? What is next for the government? What's next for business? what's next, in the global sphere, in the global village. What are they planning next? Are we ready for that? We should start to, on this platform as well, is start to encourage each other to be ready for what comes next, for every eventuality. Be ready for that.
100%. I think, and this is a great time for us really to be going to the drawing board and saying, right, how do we start planning? I mean, don't just use this time. Use this time for for self-enrichment, absolutely, and use this time for looking inward but we have to take this opportunity now to plan, like you were saying, to plan and to be ready for the next phase of where we're going. And there's nothing that beats preparation, and there's no better time to prepare than when you've got time on your hands, like we do right now. And where everything's being tested, where normality is being completely tested. The word normal is basically thrown out the window now. So it's about time for us to start saying, how do we adapt? How do we change? How do we take advantage of? How do we move forward?
Yeah, the thing is, Jared, what is normal? Have you ever thought that? What is normal? Often. Normal changes every day. In fact, look at the markets. The rand is 19 rand 30, I think, to the dollar, if I'm not incorrect. What is normal? I mean, just the other day, the rand was 14 and 13. Suddenly, it's 19, 30, to the dollar. So don't get used to normal. In fact, I don't want it to go back to normal. Before this, before COVID-19, Corona, people weren't together. People didn't share the same commonality, the same common union. They were very much opposed against each other. Suddenly, crisis comes, and everybody wants to be good to each other. Everybody wants to be. No, I don't want to go back to South Africa before this. I want to see what's happening on this platform every single day. And it mustn't be even normal. It must go to a higher level and a higher level and a higher level and a new dimension every single day. So normal is no longer normal. I don't want it to go back to the same way it was. I want it to become better, greater, more powerful, more impactful, more influential. So forget about normal, South Africa. There's no place for normal anymore. Just get ready for change and keep on changing. You know what the saying goes? You must be the change you want to see. Normal is where I look at other people changing, and I say the same myself every day. No. We gotta evolve. We gotta change. We gotta shape. We gotta we gotta make ourselves into better people every single day, and we can do it. We have the responsibility. We are accountable to do that, because when I change within myself and you change, nobody has to tell each other change.
Yeah. And
normal.
That's right. It is the most obscure word anyway. I mean, out of all the words we have, it's got to be the strangest one, because everybody interprets that from their own points of view and their own experiences. And collaboration is going to be key here, right? I mean, collaboration from the private sector, public sector, from business and from government and municipalities, etc., etc. I mean, how vital do you think that is to the success of this new way forward for us?
It's absolutely vital. I mean, look at this, Jared. You've started this with along with a great community. I mean, the I'm Staying community, and your faithful team that has stood by you during this time. You showed that it is possible to collaborate. Right there is a success story that must be put in the archives of history forever, for generations to see. And communities such as yours. Oneness Culture is doing exactly the same thing. And we are going to leave, and not leave a legacy, but we're going to live a legacy. One of the worst things that a parent can do is to leave legacies, but they've never lived one. I want to be able for my kids to see that what I told them to live, the legacy I'm leaving them, is something that I've lived, so that they could see the example. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So what we literally have to do is leave a legacy of collaboration, because until now it's been a difficult thing to collaborate, because there are a lot of prejudices, people are critical of each other. Now we have shown, forget about that, what we couldn't do. We are doing something now. This is the rise of a new community. It's the rise of a mega global community, and nothing's going to stop it. In fact, crisis makes it even more impactful. By the way, the more the crisis comes, the more the community rises, because we see the need for us to be one to fight things together. So collaboration is something that must happen from the head to the feet. Yeah, if I have a headache, my whole body wants to sleep in bed. If I have a headache. So if we get it right from the government, from the heads of companies, the heads of businesses, you know, if we get that thinking right, that thought life, change our ideologies, change the way we think, change the way we do things. And we learn that what we started here is something that cannot be left at this infant stage. We got to take it to the place where we grow it into a toddler and becomes an adolescent, becomes an adult, you know, that it can be fully functional as a mature concept that can walk the globe, you know. Let us make it physical now, you know, instead of talking about it. We spoke about it enough. We've done it for weeks now on this platform, and some of the greatest voices in our nation and beyond our borders have spoken on the same platform, and they said the same thing: collaboration, strategic partnerships. That's what Oneness Culture is actually. They stand for that. We stand for strategic partnerships and collaborations. If there's a difference, though, you must start a strategic partnership, but then you must collaborate. You can't collaborate unless you start a strategic partnership, you know. So you don't just start any partnership, you know, because you can partner with people that may not go anywhere, you know. Start a strategic partnership with somebody that has collaboration in mind after this, after all of this, you know. Not just talk it, but walk it, literally. And I believe that we have come to the place now where government must bring all of, you know, the thinkers within different spheres together, not just in telling them this is what we're going to do, this is what we are going to achieve, but to literally have consultative platforms where we can discuss what our communities, what our spheres are going through, so that the government can put feet to what we're saying as well. Yeah. Because in any country, if there's no consultative process, then there's not going to be any change. Because government will change things according to what they think is best for the nation or best for business. But businesses, from the entrepreneur right to the top biggest businesses, must join the government in thinking in a think tank. That's what I believe. Don't just take the top end guys. Look at EdCon now. EdCon is so huge, but they're closing down. Or the possibility of them closing down is imminent, you know. And we know for a fact that entrepreneurship is the new way of doing business. So what we need to focus on, and I want to urge the government, you know, that they need to get to the place where they honor the entrepreneur, because that's the only one that's getting things going right now in our economy. Yeah, you're right. You know, I mean, it's definitely the most nimble, the less onerous on resource, you know, entrepreneurs by and large, because I think what we've learned to do now, and even more so during this time, is to be able to run effective businesses at a very, very low cost, because you don't have to have rent space, for example. I mean, you can start a business out of the back of your garage. You don't have to have tons and tons of equipment. I mean, if you got yourself a laptop and an internet connection, you're ready to go. I mean, just from that perspective, you know, I mean, there's a number of different businesses that don't all have the same demands. The bottom line is that you've got a very you can launch something that can turn profit and that can employ other people at a very low cost. I mean, sometimes you can start a business with not having a cent to your name. And I think we really got to empower people to do that and drive things forward, because that's how we're going to be able to stabilize, build a network of entrepreneurs, build a network of micro business, to help us to help grow and expand on this economy. Kusta yesterday as well mentioned that you know, big businesses are great, they look good and they are great, but they also come with their own set of risks, and they don't always serve a good purpose. You know, sometimes they serve very little purpose. You can have a multi-billion rand corporation or a multi-million rand corporation that's going to employ people. They're going to pay them a salary of 5,000 or 10,000 rand a month. You don't really have an opportunity to grow at that rate, you know, to start a family, to buy a home, to get the things that you want to get. You know, if you want to achieve something great, you really need to look at building enough security for yourself and resource for yourself that will enable you to have a prolonged life, something that you can hand down to your family, and something that will inevitably empower your neighbor. Yes. Jared, what I would like to see, to be honest with you, is you know, we could have spoken about this, you know, in private, but while we're doing this on the air, let's do that. Is to see that we, you know, especially from an entrepreneurial perspective, is to take this, what you've got here, and obviously this is for for our engagement after this, you know, after this session, is to talk about, you know, how that we can physically take it into communities. Because your entrepreneurs are hidden in communities. It's hidden in those neighborhoods somewhere, you know, in Retreat, in Steenberg, in all of those areas. And they have been working, you know, at a very low cost, you know, totally hidden, forgotten even sometimes, you know, and take this idea, you know, that you have here, and take it to the communities, literally in little pockets. And because before we've heard of skills transfer, you know, but we haven't seen it in communities. I'm being honest with you. I've been physically training NGOs, you know, as a coach, you know, official coach to some NGOs, and it is sad to see that the people that come for training, they still have to pay for their training. They still have to pay for it. Now, if you don't have money to start a business, how are you going to pay for training? But because they are pumped up, they want to get their businesses out there, they come to these coaching sessions, even though it's maybe just 50 Rand or 100 Rand. It's money that they don't have. Now, I want to see that the finance, you know, that is set for entrepreneurs, coming down from the top down, from government to the right places through the right NGOs. You know, until now, we've not seen the filtering of the finance to those small townships, you know, the different suburbs in the disenfranchised areas. Get those people out. I know some fantastic jewelers, you know, that worked for companies before, but because they decided they're not going to be ripped off by them anymore, what they did was start a little business at home. But what's happening is they sell a ring a month, 2 rings a month. What is that going to do? Because there's no pressure. They've great ideas, they've got skill, but they don't have any funds to package their business, brand their business, and to get it out there. So I want to see this platform, a platform like this, many other platforms, Oneness Culture, coming together and going into those communities and bringing those entrepreneurs to the forefront. That's what I'm looking to see.
Sure. So listen, I mean, you know, just getting back to the I'm Staying Entrepreneur movement. I mean, the whole plan around the movement, the whole structure, the model, is about taking someone's hand and showing them how to build a business, how to build a network, how to engage with clients, how to, you know, what tools you need in order to have exposure and all those sorts of things, the important things, because it's useless just giving somebody $1 million and saying, there, go start a business. I mean, I've started a number of businesses and they fail. Businesses fail. Businesses are difficult to get off the ground. We've got a very small market. It's a small economy. You've really got to know what you're doing. You've got many obstacles that are in front of you, and a lot of those are barriers to entry. So, so the idea behind this movement is, you know, not just to be able to facilitate that function, which is actually a function of mentorship and growth, but also to provide a pool of resources. Now, we've just launched the Backer Buddy campaign, and that Backer Buddy campaign enables people, the general public, to put funds in. Now, for as little as 350 Rand, somebody can sponsor someone's business. That 350 Rand will see that person going through this process. I mean, can you imagine that? For 350 bucks, it's R1 a day. And this is somebody that can sponsor this. It's R1 a day. R1 a day, you can actually take somebody, help them to build a landing page, get them mentorship, get them all the tools that they need to be able to drive the business, help them to deal with clients and shape all of this kind of stuff. I mean, this is just a fantastic initiative. It really is a fantastic initiative when you look at how much money has been thrown at business by government and it's getting nowhere, because that's exactly what happens. Money gets sent out, but then what? You know, then what? Just because you got money doesn't mean you're going to make a successful business. We know it doesn't.
Exactly.
It doesn't, you know.
No, you need the ongoing training, and that's exactly why a lot of these businesses that were funded or entrepreneurs that were funded, they failed. And you know that most businesses fail in the first year.
Yeah, exactly.
If not even the first month.
And those are some guys who are incredibly skilled at business. I mean, you can be incredibly skilled at business and your business can still fail. I mean, you know, there are so many factors that can make or break a business. So imagine having no idea on how to get a business up and running. Somebody just gives you a ton of cash, and now you're supposed to go and make a success of that and contribute to the economy. It's impossible. So we need to think broader. Yeah, we need to think broader, and you know, we need to get guys like yourselves and the Leon Lartechans and the Reniakas, and there's a whole lot of people playing in the space. You know, there's a lot of people, but we must come together. We must have constructive discussion. And also a very clear path, a very clear modus operandi in terms of how we get this right. You know, if you've got a success rate of 50%, that is phenomenal. Even that is phenomenal. You know, At the moment, I think your chances of succeeding with the current models that are out there are like less than 10%. You don't really have a chance.
Exactly.
You don't really have a chance.
Yeah. And the thing is, I always say, you know, you've got fantastic coaches, and if you listen to people like Tony Robbins, John Maxwell, some of the greatest voices right now in training and coaching, they will tell you that every coach must have a coach. Now, imagine an entrepreneur not having a coach.
Yeah.
An entrepreneur must have a coach.
Yeah.
So what we need to, and what we are doing here is through this initiative outside of I'm Staying, you've got the Leon Lartigan, you know, connection right there, the line with Lions Den, and other parties that will come here, Robin Banks, all these other voices, you know, like you just said. If you get that together and start a hub of coaches that are focused on one thing, it is to build entrepreneurs to the next level of success. Then I believe we're going to have the greatest revolution, you know, entrepreneurs in the world, starting right here in Africa, if we do that, you know. And like you said, we must come together in consultative and through a consultative process and start to think together, the collective minds, and create a program that is next to second to none. Sorry, that is impossible to beat, you know, because you've got experience and expertise here of hundreds of years together, you know. Imagine you put all of that mind capacity together to formulate and structure something that could turn around the entrepreneurial space forever in South Africa. And we are an untapped market when it comes to entrepreneurship, Africa and Africa, and South Africa and Africa. And if we can just hone into that, basically, we can start something that could impact the nations around the world.
Absolutely.
Because we're underdeveloped. There's a lot of space for development.
Well, there's so much space for development, and the beautiful thing about adversity is it very often gives birth to stuff like this. You know, adversity very often gives birth to the most remarkable feats, and I think there's nothing different in terms of where we are right now from an economic standpoint.
Absolutely.
You know, we've got adversity on our side. We've got these hardships on our side. So now, how do we convert that into something that will help us to flourish?
Yes. Yes. Somebody once said, one of the greatest voices said, in the midst of calamity, in the midst of adversity, you find the greatest opportunity. You know? And I would like to make this statement. In the day, you know, when I was probably about 5, 6 years old, I looked at our windows, you know, and at the different windows in the neighborhood, and you'd see these burglar guards. And I always wondered, as a young 5-year-old guy, you know, what are these things? These twirly little, you know, burglar guards. What are these? And one day I asked my mom, you know, why is it there? You know, and my mom said it's not just to beautify the house. It looks good. You know, and in that day, if you didn't have burglar guards, you'd be the one that is like the odd one out in the community, because it beautified your windows. In the meanwhile, back at the ranch, it was to combat crime. It was to combat crime, you know. And I thought about this thing, and I said, my goodness, as I grew up, and I eventually worked for one of the biggest security companies in the country. I was their corporate business development manager until 2010. Both my wife and myself worked for them. Blue Security, you might have heard of them. They were Enforce before, Enforce Guarding. They were a huge company, international company. And then there was a breakaway, and we started Blue Security. So I was involved as a corporate business development manager, creating concepts to get into communities where, let's say, for instance, sorry, Chubb and ADT, but in places where ADT and Chubb was prominent. And I would have to go in and find ways, you know, to bring, you know, lateral solutions into the community, you know, is to find, you know, ways to combat the Chubbs and the ADTs from growing bigger. You know, now that sounds weird, you know, but I've had to sit literally day in and day out. And I found weaknesses in the operation, and I made it strengths in hours. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I went into those areas, and I realized the business that I'm in at that point, it dated back to the time when I was 5 years old, and I looked at burglar guards, twirly burglar guards that looked like like it was part, you know, of the beautifying of a home. In the meanwhile, it was about crime, you know, and how it evolved to integrated systems, you know, ISCOM, CCV, you know, access pest control, you know. But it started with a burglar guard to combat crime, you know. And look at that mindset. It was done by almost every welder in our area could make burglar guards, you know, to make money, you know, to beautify homes. In the meanwhile, it was for to combat crime. Now look at that mindset. If we can take a burglar guard and take it to the level of integrated systems eventually in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
What can we not do through this community?
Absolutely.
What can we not do through a platform for entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
There are many ideas out like that, exactly like that, that just needs to come into a hub where we can refine it, where we can sandpaper it, and then make it a brand.
Yeah.
Because a brand is everything.
Yeah.
Brand power is everything. Without a brand, you're just a business. And without community, you're just a brand.
Yeah.
And so therefore, one of the things I teach is building community around your brand. That's one of the things I teach, is building community around the brand. If you look at Apple, that's what they do. And look how big they are. Look at Amazon, community. Mark Zuckerberg, community. So it's proven to us that every brand that surrounds itself with community, the spirit of community, the power of community, the influence of community, the impact of community, they thrive. They don't survive. They thrive. It's the businesses that have not embraced the spirit of community until now. They are surviving and barely getting past the the crisis. And therefore, even big corporations, they've fallen to the ground. And you've got to look at all those businesses that have failed in this time. Is it the crisis that made them fail? We've got to ask that question. Is it the oil prices, the industrial war? I don't call it a revolution. I call it a war that's happening globally right now. Is it that? Or is it maybe just the fact that you didn't build your business around community?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Hart, listen, thank you so much for your time. We've run to the end of our session. It's amazing talking to you as always, and we look forward to having you on the show again at some point. Is there any parting message you'd like to leave with the community before we go?
I'm going to do that. Let me just read something, as I always do. It comes out better if I read it. I want to read, just a segment from one of my books called Community in Crisis. You see, what happened is when I started writing, this book was supposed to be out 2 months ago, called The Spirit, Power, Influence, and Impact of Community. It was sort of a add-on to my book, The Call to Oneness. And what's happened in the crisis, as John Maxwell also says, new opportunity gets birth. So there's new thoughts that come. So when we get into the think tank, we were forced to be there. So I looked at the book and I said, I didn't put anything about crisis in this book. So I decided, let's something about community, the power of community in crisis. And this is what I wrote. We must learn not to wait for crisis to change. We must change to prevent further crisis. Because out of this crisis, new crises can be born. We must learn from Corona that there will be another crisis. The other crisis is there's no money. People are running out of food. There's another crisis now. You see, outside of that, people are breaking the law. You know, after being told to stay at home, they didn't stay at home. So it created another crisis, which means now law enforcement has to enforce greater force. You know, and unfortunately, there's a lot of innocent people that are impacted by that. That's just going to the shop to go and buy some food. You know. And the same kind of antagonistic behavior is going to be forced on us because of a few that failed to obey the law. You know, so we mustn't wait for crisis, to change. We must change to prevent more crisis. Crisis teaches us to put better prevention management plans and structures in place. Crisis teaches us to be to be forewarned and forearmed. Crisis and calamity is camouflage opportunity. We must remember all those things. Find the opportunity in this calamity that we are in. We dare not go back to what our nation was like before crisis attacked us, before it struck us. We must not go back to that. Let us constantly evolve. Crisis makes us uncomfortable about being comfortable. Sorry, I'll rephrase it again. Crisis makes us uncomfortable about being comfortable. It pushes us out of our comfort zone. The same way an eagle kicks the eaglet out of the nest so it can use its wings to fly. It is time to flap our wings as a nation, to soar above the storm like the mighty eagle. The spirit, power, influence, and impact of a community, I say, what the world needs is the power of community in times of crisis. The only way to combat and overcome crisis is through community. We need community during a crisis. We must not wait for crisis to care and to be kind. Crisis builds character. It doesn't assassinate it. It builds character. It doesn't assassinate it. How we view things at this time will determine from here on how we do things. How we view it is how we'll do it, you know. And so we must focus on what we have started here. We must focus on what we have planned in this time, and to get together with those thinkers, those critical thinkers and forward thinkers that want to take this to the next dimension. We are tired of levels. You know, levels, I always say levels is like stepping on the steps of a ladder. You go from step to step, but a dimension means that you are able to jump the ladder and to go higher. How do you do that? Through an elevator, through an escalator. You get there within seconds. That would have taken you how long to climb, you know, on a staircase. So I believe this platform is such a platform. It's a platform where through engagement, we can go from levels to dimensions. If you want to stay at levels, go with the guys that stay with the chickens. But if you want to go to dimensions, stay with the eagles. Absolutely. And that is my message to Mzansi, is that they will constantly find eagles. Get away from the chickens that criticize your growth, that criticize what you are doing.
That's an amazing.
Jared, you are fantastic, Jared. I want to commend your team. I want to commend the community that is working with you, because without the community, this platform would not be possible. And I can just say that I'm looking forward to Oneness Culture, working with I'm Staying, the I'm Staying community, and of course the other voices that have joined you over these last days. They are phenomenal. We've learned a lot from them. You know, from PJ Powers to Robin Banks to all these guys. They're fantastic. Even those who came to perform and entertain Mzansi. You know, I want to commend them and clap hands for them. We've shown that this is possible in the midst of crisis, in the midst of such confusion, that we can still bring a measure of peace in our country. Thank you so much for having us, Oneness Culture, on the air with you. And we're looking forward to many engagements like this.
Thank you so much, Doc. It's a wonderful message. And yeah, we're looking forward to working with you as well going forward. I think there's a lot of wonderful things to come. If you've just joined in, or if you want to catch us, if you've missed the show, please go to www.imstaying.co.za. Alternatively, you can go to our Facebook page, not the group, which is I'm Staying Media. Doc, thank you so much. Chat to you soon. Take care.
Thank you, Jared. Take it easy.
Cheers.